To Bangladesh, which is entering the final day of campaigning ahead of elections this weekend. The ruling Awami League is said to be re-elected for a fourth straight parliamentary term, with all candidates on the ballot from the party. Its allies are independents. Rallies against the government had turned violent last year, and the unrest comes as Bangladesh faces economic hardship. And for more, we can speak with Ali Riaz. He is a distinguished professor of politics and government at Illinois State University and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Firstly, what's your reaction? Are you expecting this weekend, are you expecting to see on polling day, both in terms of turnout and by the opponents of Hasina?
First of all, whether we should call it an election is an open question, because it is largely a stage-managed show. Because those who are on the ballot are not exactly the opponents of the government. There is no contest as such. I mean, this is essentially an uncontested one. So the result is pretty much foregone conclusion, because the opposition has been, most of the opposition leaders are in jail. And also hundreds of them, thousands of them, basically more than 1,500 have been convicted, 20,000 have been put on the jail. So whether there will be people showing up, that depends on many things, but most importantly, government has mobilized and used the state apparatuses to bring people into the polling center. But that would not actually reflect a public opinion, because there is no opposition. Those who are participating as allies of the government.
So if we take that point further then, with opposition parties boycotting in the poll and many of their leaders jailed, would a victory for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina carry any legitimacy?
Morally, it doesn't, actually. This government has been facing moral legitimacy since the previous two elections. The 2014 election, which was boycotted by all opposition, and then 2018 election was marred with not only violence, but it was engineered in a fashion. The state apparatuses were used. So it has been facing this kind of legitimacy crisis over the last decade and a half. They should actually accentuate this situation. I don't see that they can claim any moral legitimacy after how they have organized this election and pretty much forced the opposition to be away from the election.
Now, I understand that Sheikh Hasina was once a leader who fought for multi-party democracy, and now the UN expresses alarm at her government's suppression of the opposition. How did things get to this?
The process actually started in 2011, when the constitutional provision for a caretaker government to oversee the election was scrapped by Awami League. They had the majority. They came to power in a free and fair election in 2008. And since then, we have seen all these kind of legal and, extra-legal measures to suppress opposition, particularly the freedom of expression has dwindled. Pretty much freedom of assembly has dwindled. So the process started with these constitutional changes, but since then it has in a downward spiral. Continuously, we have seen how the persecution went on against the opposition and any kind of dissent, and that is the usual road towards authoritarianism, or you can call it an autocracy as well.
Just quickly, what do you think the reaction will be from the international community to this one-sided election, as you put it?
I hope that the international community, particularly those who are the democratic one, and especially the United States, which has raised so much, concern going into the election, there would be some kind of action. Definitely, this is an unacceptable election, because they insisted on free, fair, and inclusive election. This is neither free nor fair. Definitely not inclusive election. Opposition is out of this. So I hope that they would take stern action. The talk itself would not do. They have tried, and the opposition have pursued a non-violence, path to achieve their goals. It didn't work. I'm afraid that whether there could be more violence in the coming days, but most importantly, the economic situation, which you have referred to, is going to be a major challenge, and especially whether the external actors should step in. Is something we need to see. But I would expect that they would not simply stop in talking, but they would take some actions with respect to this completely one-sided election.
Thank you for your thoughts today. Ali Riaz from the Illinois State University.